Tuesday night, Robert Saleh was on ESPN New York with Michael Kay, and he was asked a very specific question of why he hasn't gone from Zach Wilson to Trevor Siemian. And Saleh said, "I'll plead the fifth," which created an idea that there isn't harmony within the organization about Zach Wilson being playing, and that if Robert Saleh was left to his devices, he would tell Wilson to take a seat and he would go with Siemian. Here is Robert Saleh from yesterday about keeping Zach Wilson as the starter for the New York Jets football team.
Robert, statistically speaking, this offense has operated at a higher clip with just about every other quarterback you guys have used aside from Zach Wilson over the last 3 years. Is there a mandate or push or an initiative from above to continue to stick with Zach Wilson in spite of this?
No, we're on the same page with that. So, any conspiracy theory that might be out there, we're on the same page.
Look, that's what he's got to say, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's reality. It's reacting to what he said.
Self-induced.
Why is he pleading the fifth?
Right.
Yeah, he pleads the fifth on whether or not he's going to go from Zach Wilson to Trevor Siemian. And this all goes back to last year, that horrible Thursday night game right before Christmas that Zach Wilson had against the Jaguars when they ended up bringing in Chris Streveler to give them a spark.
Right.
On Sunday of that week, Jay Glazer goes on Fox and he says the Jets are moving on from Zach Wilson. And Glazer doesn't get stuff wrong. At that moment, they were moving on from Zach Wilson. At some point after that, somebody decided we're not moving on from Zach Wilson. So I think there's been a schism, if you will, for a while in the organization about Zach Wilson. And Chris, the other side of this is because Aaron Rodgers has been hovering all year with this, I'm coming back, that's ultimately why they weren't able to go out and upgrade with somebody else. I mean, they can say we didn't have the draft assets or whatever. Vikings didn't have to give up much to get Josh Dobbs. They immediately pivoted to a post-Kirk Cousins plan, and it worked. The Jets just tried to dog paddle in the East River because the whole Cousins thing was pie in the sky anyway, but even if you get Cousins in New York and it goes well, Daddy's home. And it's time for me to play. And sorry that Kirk's playing so well, but he goes to the bench and he and Zach can sit there and just watch me do my thing. So Rodgers, I think, and his constant attitude from the get-go that he's coming back is really the thing that has kept the Jets from having any significant effort externally to bring in someone who would help them get to the playoffs because that someone ends up being supplanted when Rodgers returns.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, right? We discussed that at the time. I think also kind of what you said a minute ago is another big part of it, right? Is that, one, Zach Wilson had a good offseason, right? He had a pretty good preseason training camp to go on top of that. And then there's support in the organization for Zach Wilson because he was the number 2 pick. And again, if you're a first-round pick, you get 9 lives in the NFL. You get more chances to survive than any other player in football. That is the gift of being a first-round pick. But yes, when you're that high of a pick too, they're not going to give up on you easily. They're not. The GM, he knows his name is associated with that quarterback as the number 2 pick. The owner, he's also involved in that a little bit. So I would bet there was, some strong backing from higher up in the organization to not give up on Zach Wilson quite yet. Let's see what he's got. We did draft him number 2, and then you add on top of the Rodgers conversation and all that. I think that's, it is the reason they are where they are. And again, what I'll state is like we did yesterday a little bit, Zach Wilson, it hasn't been good, but I don't care who you put in there. It ain't going to be better with Trevor Siemian or Tim Boyle or anything like that. There is systemic problems with the Jets offense. Everybody sees it, right? It's not like I don't look at it and watch the Giants game 2 weeks ago and go, man, Wilson missed people open all over the field. I look at it and go, damn, Wink Martindale and the Giants were all over the Jets and knew everything they were doing, and there wasn't anybody open, one, because of scheme and Zach Wilson, and then 2, because there's not, as we talked about, really any scary receivers on the football team other than Garrett Wilson. So, that's where I think it's all kind of coming to this point right now. And to me, to change the quarterback, you're sitting here at 4-4. That would be a bigger distraction than anything, right? Just stay the course. He's had some good moments. You won 3 out of the last 4, all right? You went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. You've shown some moments here where, hey, he can do what he needs to do to keep you, in a game against the best teams in the football. That's right. He beat the Eagles. So that's where I would stay the course and just hang in there. And there has been some progress in that he's not throwing interceptions and doing stuff of that nature nearly as much, right? He's taking care of the ball there, and it's just going to be ugly, and they got to come to the, what do I want to say, the obvious fact that that's the way it's going to be for the rest of the year on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, one of the reasons he's not throwing interceptions is he's not getting rid of the ball because he's not listening to the clock in his head, or the clock's not working.
He had the fumbles. I got you. I got you.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
And here comes Max Crosby
right
on Sunday night on NBC. I really hope that the truth here isn't that Woody Johnson, the owner of the team, refused to let this guy go for fear that he's going to go somewhere else and become the guy that he never was with the Jets and embarrass the Jets. I hope that's not the case. Now, in the offseason, when Zach Wilson was perfectly fine with coming back, because I thought there was a chance he was going to say, I'd like to move on, please. I'd like a fresh start for my career. When he was all on board with returning, that eliminated this conversation of whether or not they're just squatting on him so he can't go somewhere else and be better than he's been with the Jets. But, at some point, he's going to be somewhere else because I just think at this point, Chris, there's no way he can be the successor to Aaron Rodgers. No, I don't think the Jets fan base is going to accept that.
No, I hear you there. And you know me, I'm a guy that, I made him the number 1 quarterback there, and I'd like to see him succeed and make me right. But, it's not even close between him and Trevor Lawrence. And, there's some things in his development that are, still concerning. So I don't see that either as far as a future for him and Zach Wilson. And, I think ultimately it'll probably do Zach Wilson good to get out of New York, get a new perspective, a new fresh look on things, and have a new coach in his ear to kind of straighten out, some of the things he has issues with. But I do think, Mike, to your point, that I do think they were scared to just let him go and go somewhere. As you heard me say a bunch of times in the offseason, early on in the season, he's the kind of guy that teams do get scared to let go because they go, damn, his talent is real. He makes throws and moves around out here, and it's scary good sometimes. So they don't want to let go of that guy. But when it becomes between the lines a little bit, and like we talked about, yesterday and everything there, the time in his clock, or the clock in his head, the movement in the pocket, when to get out of dodge, when to just take the check down and the easy completion, missing the easy completion when he's open and you're like, man, you're too talented to miss that. I think those are all issues that frustrate Jet fans, and I understand there's a lack of development that I would like to see in that department as well.
It'll be interesting to see if he wants to come back next year. It'll be interesting to see if in the offseason he says, I need a fresh start now. Let one of Aaron Rodgers' buddies come be his backup for next year. I want to go somewhere else. I want to get started on it because I know, we all know, I'm not going to be the quarterback of the Jets in 2025 when Aaron Rodgers retires, if he even does. So last year he was willing to stay. This year, let's see what he does when the season ends for the New York Jets. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.